Belarusians in general, if they go out as a group of girls, they don't seem to have much of an issue if they see that their girlfriend is with a guy that she likes, obviously, of just leaving her with a guy and letting her go home with him. Whilst in Ukraine, there tends to be a lot more reservation about that, that no, we came together, we all got to leave together, and there seems to be a different social dynamic in my experience where they're less likely to just leave their girlfriend with some foreign guy that they met at the club.
Experience.
Всем привет! Welcome back to another episode of the Vodka Podcast with me, Connor Klein. It's great to have you here again. I'm speaking to you from Gomel, which is Belarus's second city, and of course today's theme is about Belarusian girls and whether they are easy in inverted commas. Now, to preface this video, I don't like the term easy myself. I'm not into slut shaming or anything like that, but because it's in common parlance and I know it's easily understandable in the title so that you know what you to expect in terms of content when you clicked on this video, we're going to use that term, but basically we mean are women particularly easy for you to hook up with as a foreigner when you come here to Belarus. So whether they're promiscuous or not, or maybe not necessarily promiscuous, but are they going to be interested in hooking up with you in particular? And that's why I've used the word easy. But as I said when I prefaced my Ukrainian video on the same topic, that's not a judgment call by me personally. I don't have those kind of stereotypes of women or prejudices about them that they should be the Virgin Mary or something like that. So I am here in Gomel, which I have to say is a very nice city in the east of Belarus. It's close to the Russian border, actually very close to the Ukrainian border, very close to Chernihiv, which is a city close to the Chernobyl power plant. I made a winter vlog from Chernobyl. You can go check that out. I guess I put it up here as a card and down in the description below the video. If you haven't seen that, then go and check it out. That was something I did back in the winter. And as you can see, it's definitely not the winter time now. It is late spring, early summer, I guess. The weather has been very nice today. And there's lots of Belarusian girls, of course, out walking around. So if you haven't seen my Ukrainian version of the video, then because you're maybe more interested in going to Ukraine rather than Belarus, or you just want to improve your general knowledge, definitely go and check that video out. So basically in that video, as you're going to see, I'm going a bit of a spoiler alert right now, but I actually said that Ukrainian girls are not easy if you come as a foreigner to Ukraine, especially in those cities that are very touristic, like Odessa in the south in the Black Sea, where I spent a lot of my summer, for example. It's maybe a little bit easier in Kiev. It's more of an anonymous big capital, but also like in Lviv, in the west of the country, where girls tend to be more conservative, just the people are more conservative there. Definitely it is not overall, in spite of the stereotypes that you might have heard. Now, maybe your knowledge about Belarusians and Belarus is a little bit less, because Belarus is the least visited country in Europe, at least it has been, but they have of course changed the rules on visa-free, which has made the country definitely more popular in the last year or so. So in this video I also want to just do a little bit of a comparison with girls in Ukraine, because that's where I have been spending a lot of time up until recently. And if you've been watching my content on my channel here, you'll see I have a lot of videos about Ukraine, about traveling through the country, and dating local girls there in Ukraine. So definitely there is a big difference between how Belarusian girls react to foreigners like me and like you and Ukrainians. And actually there's a lot of other videos for you to see on that, because I recently released what girls in Minsk, Belarus think of foreign guys. I'm going to of course link it up and below. And there, actually, it was really interesting, the difference. They were so enthusiastic compared to the reactions that generally I got in the cities in Ukraine where I've done that video, which is like Kiev so far, and also Odessa a couple of times. There's definitely a marked difference, and they were definitely more enthusiastic about the idea of dating a foreigner, and of course, maybe marrying a foreigner, maybe leaving Belarus than Ukrainians are in general. But that's not exactly what we're going to talk about in this video. It's more going to be about like how easy is it going to be for you to hook up with and sleep with Belarusian girls vis-a-vis maybe girls in your own country or in other countries in the region, and to give you that kind of relative comparison. Now, in general, when Belarusian girls go out, or just in general when they meet foreign guys, they are more enthusiastic than you're going to see in other countries, and definitely they're very positive in general. And that's just in general to foreigners, not necessarily to Western Europeans or North Americans, but also my Ukrainian guy friends have told me that they're also super positive towards Ukrainian guys when they come here, or when they meet Ukrainian guys when they're on holidays in Ukraine, maybe by the seaside. So it's definitely something that's universal, that they are very positive and definitely very curious and interested in foreigners in general. Once they come from Belarus. Now that's for several reasons. One of the main reasons is, of course, that there are so few foreigners coming here. Now there are, of course, going to be Russians, and there's going to be students actually that come from countries like maybe the Arabic countries, Turkey a bit, maybe Central Asia. I've seen a lot of foreign students. Also West Africa, countries like Nigeria traditionally have a lot of students in this region. So there are some foreigners that come here, but there's very, very few still, speaking in 2019, who come from countries like Western Europe or North America, or just visitors from abroad who are maybe post-university. Definitely there's very few. So they're very curious because they don't have very much experience in interacting with foreigners, so they tend to be positive and want to get to know foreigners in general. And also Belarusians have, in general, a Belarusian passport, which needs a lot of visas when they're traveling. So it's very hard for them to actually travel to, say, North America, to Western Europe. Not really sure about Latin America, how many visa frees they have, but to get a Schengen visa is still a good bit of effort. It's not as hard as it was in the past, but it still takes them a bit of effort, and of course it costs them money, relatively a lot of money, for them to get a Schengen visa or to get a US visa in terms of fees. And obviously America is a good bit away, so they have to fly there. So you can see cost is definitely going to be a factor for their travel. They do have some visa-free travel to cheap locations relatively, like some parts of North Africa and Turkey, and obviously to Russia. They don't need a visa, so they can go on holidays there. But in general, they don't go to places where they meet a lot of foreigners very often. It's another factor why they are so curious and going to be so positive. So now that you know that they are very interested in foreigners in general, as you saw from that video, if you've gone and watched the one from Minsk, the question, are they going to be interested in going a little bit further than that? Now, Belarus, to understand as a country, has actually good nightlife at the weekend, but during the week there is very little going on, and that's not just in Minsk. Well, even in Minsk, which is the capital. I was going to say not just in a more provincial city like Gomel, which is the second city, or Brest or Grodno. I've also made travel vlogs from there. They're definitely smaller and more provincial, and you might expect there's not much going on in the week. But even Minsk, honestly, like outside of Friday and Saturday night, there is not a whole lot of nightlife or activities going on in the city. So life is pretty predictable during the week. It doesn't involve a lot of crazy parties or anything like that. But then at the weekend in Belarus, people love to let their hair down and just go a little bit crazy. So they tend to go out and party and socialize an awful lot at the weekend, so Friday, Saturday night. And this is a country where people drink a lot of alcohol in general relative to other countries. They were in the past #1 for alcohol consumption. I made a video about Belarusian etiquette. My friend Dasha, she pointed out that they're no longer #1 for alcohol consumption. Some other countries have caught up. I think it was Lithuania, the stats that she cited, but actually there are a lot of Belarusians who moved to Lithuania. Might have affected the alcohol consumption rate there as well a little bit, at least had a little bit of an influence on it, which would be funny, right? I mean, imagine the alcohol level per capita goes down in Belarus is because people leave and go to Lithuania, relatively pushing it up for that country. So, but that they do tend to drink a lot of alcohol. Now, I was born in Ireland, and of course, people do a lot of things when they're under influence of alcohol. Irish are, of course, a nation that is renowned for their prowess in drinking, just like the English. And yeah, people tend to hook up and have sex under the influence of alcohol quite a lot. So you can imagine that if they're already interested in foreigners, there isn't much going on during the week, and then the weekend they go out and party. Then, in general, yes, they do tend to go home with guys pretty frequently, in my experience, especially after being out partying and drinking. That definitely happens a lot. So it's definitely a factor in how easy Belarusian girls are, especially when they're at parties. Now, there are, of course, a lot of other factors that decide whether a girl's going to be interested in sleeping with you or not. One of the other big differences I've noticed, and that my friends and my clients who've come here with me have noticed, is that interestingly, and definitely a big contrast with Ukraine, because obviously Ukrainians also drink quite a lot of alcohol, but Belarusians in general, if they go out as a group of girls, they don't seem to have much of an issue if they see that their girlfriend is with a guy that she likes, obviously, of just leaving her with a guy and letting her go home with him. Whilst in Ukraine, there tends to be a lot more reservation about that, and no, we came together, we all got to leave together, and there seems to be a different social dynamic in my experience where they're less likely to just leave their girlfriend with some foreign guy that they met at the club, obviously with the intention of going home with him afterwards. Now, there's obviously a very good reason for that, and that difference between Ukraine and Belarus, and that's actually the level of rule of law. Now, Belarus has a very high level rule of law, whilst Ukraine has a very low level of rule of law. And what does that mean? It means that basic laws in general are not enforced in Ukraine very strongly. There's a lot of corruption, and in general there's a lot of more of a laissez-faire kind of attitude from the government, and just the people in general, they don't tend to follow rules very well, and they're not forced to consistently by the government. Now, here in Belarus, it's quite different. The government has a very strict policy of enforcing law, and you will come across, if you break laws in Belarus, they may seem quite trivial, but they are taken a lot more seriously here. I have a video that I'm going to link as well about, like, for example, my phone went missing here in Belarus. I mean, the police took it very seriously, and they actually got my phone back, and I had just actually misplaced it and left it behind me in an Uber, but they found it, and the Uber driver was there waiting for me when I came back to Belarus with the phone in hand. So that shows you a big difference. That doesn't happen in very many countries, that a mobile phone goes missing from a foreign visitor, and they make sure that they follow up and they track it down. So that gives you a very good indication of like the difference between Belarus and Ukraine, how serious crime is taken, and then by people in general, they're used to following rules more here in Belarus than in Ukraine, and as a result, you can actually trust people a lot more. And I'm going to talk about them, the 5 reasons to date a Belarusian and the 5 reasons never to date a Belarusian series. I'm going to shoot that actually tomorrow, but it will already be up on the channel when you see this video. So definitely go and look at that. And that's one of the things that I'm going to talk about in that video, is the fact that the level of trust is so much higher because of the environment. You can trust girls here more, and conversely, they can trust guys more. So that tends to be an interesting phenomenon that I've noticed, and that definitely obviously makes it easier to take a girl home after a night if her friends she already has a higher level of trust in general towards you and towards me. So definitely that is a big plus for the situation here in Belarus. So that's kind of my overview of coming to Belarus and whether girls are easy in inverted commas or not. So obviously you can basically tell my conclusion here, which is definitely compared to Ukraine, where I spent a lot of time, I would say definitely girls are easier here in Belarus. I would say overall, on a global comparison of, you should probably check out my video with my buddy Andy from the UK, where we talk about like just in general where the best girls are in the world, and you get a very strong taste for all the countries that we've gone to and our experiences, which is quite broad. And I would say on a global level that Belarusian girls are easy as a foreigner to take home, to have sex with, to hook up with, make out with, as an overall comparison across the globe. And in Europe, I wouldn't say they are the easiest. I would actually say that Brazilians still rank #1 in that regard in my experience, but they definitely are at the higher end in terms of if we were to put that on a scale. So go Belarus, go Belarusian girls. Fair play for that. Now, that doesn't mean that overall that dating Belarusians is super easy and it's going to be without any problems or anything like that. And that's why I've made the 2 other videos, 5 reasons to date a Belarusian and 5 reasons never to date a Belarusian. And you're going to see that if you come here, and it might be easy to hook up with girls, but they can be a little bit more tricky when you try to get into, say, a longer relationship, or you invest a lot more time, some time into getting to know the girls and having some dates and having more of a relationship. There are certain issues that come up, so I'm going to be going into those in other videos for you, so that you get a better overview of the whole setup, the whole dating setup when you come here. So now you have gotten an overview. And of course, if you have dated a Belarusian, if you've been here to Belarus, or maybe you've met a Belarusian girl on one of your travels or in your home country, then definitely drop a comment below. Let me know about your experience, and also all the other commenters. Been growing this great community of guys who comment on my videos with their own experiences. That just like makes this channel an even bigger resource for you. So definitely go and contribute if you've had some personal experience yourself. I read all the comments, at least I try to read all of them, and try to comment back in general if I have the time. Obviously, sometimes capacity is a little bit different with a lot of just the vast number of views that I now get on the channel. So that has probably satiated your curiosity to know whether Belarusian girls are easy or not. But listen, not everybody can live my lifestyle, right? It is phenomenal. I do get to travel, constantly around all these countries and basically live between them and have set up my lifestyle in that way. And I appreciate that not everybody can do that, and that this whole lifestyle is not for everybody, and the Zara experience in general is not for everybody. But if you do want to push your boundaries, go somewhere that's definitely less traveled to, and just have a phenomenal, unforgettable experience in this part of the world, then definitely write me. If I think that we're a good fit to work together, then we're going to jump on a quick strategy call together, a free one for 10 minutes, and we'll explore the possibility of you coming and living the Zara experience. Definitely, I used to work as a lawyer. I remember sitting in meetings about technical regulations and all this rubbish. Well, not rubbish, but for me, really, I just couldn't stand it. I was bored senseless. And even though I was making obviously a substantive amount of money and I was working with great people at the time, it just wasn't something I was passionate about. And I felt like, I couldn't wait to go on these weekends. I just couldn't. I would count down the days to go on these weekends and fly to Eastern Europe, and I had to do it on my own. But if we work together, you're going to be able to do it with me. You're going to have, I've already done the reconnaissance. I know the best places. I know exactly, what the pitfalls are. I've experienced them myself, or I've seen other people experience them. I can make sure that you don't fall into those, and it just will be an amazing experience. So definitely write me an email or drop me slide into my DMs, as the new term of art is on Instagram, and we'll discuss it further. That is the end of this episode. I hope this one was a little bit shorter. I do tend to ramble a good bit. Of course, if you've enjoyed this content, then it's always great to give me a thumbs up, because that lets me know. I actually look at the engagement, not really the number of views on videos. I want to see, do you find this content useful? So that's another reason to leave me a comment and give it a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. That way I'll see that and I'll know, okay, I need to more of this content because it's actually more valuable to you than maybe a video got more views, because a lot of times I obviously have some pretty girl in the thumbnail, or maybe a very clickbaity title, and that actually gets the views rather than the engagement, which is and the value for you. So that's great feedback for me to have and make this channel even more epic and valuable for you. So I'm going to just run off and actually going to meet up with another British YouTuber, Mr. Bald from Bald and Bankrupt. We've been hanging out together here in Gomel for the best part of a week actually, and we're probably going to spend this weekend and make some very interesting content together that's going to come up on my channel and his channel over the next few weeks, and well, maybe it will take us a month to edit it up, but definitely by the time this video is out, you will have seen it. Oh my god, I'm starting to ramble again. So, do svidaniya. See you in the next video.
Zara Experience.